Then the intensity is lost of the hot genital strivings, the excitement, the urgency. When you put agape as a part of that scenario, what I'm arguing here is that there is a gulf, a qualitative and quantitative separation between agape love, relationship, and all the other things that, the sentimental things, the poetic things that we love to romanticize about, make soap opera, make drama, and the raw, carnal, unfiltered, hot genital strivings, and the competition on the sense of urgency, the drive for release on the sense of urgency is compelling. This is the paradox. How to sustain those primordial, primitive, carnal tensions, the hot genital strivings, put them in context and get them. They must, for purposes of survival, must be under the control totally of the ego. That takes a philosophy to brace yourself on, a street smart, practical, concrete philosophy that has been worked through and processed through the trials and tribulations of your own DNA. There's no other way. Even bad sex is better than no sex, because how else could it get better unless I invented it? That's the danger of the fantasies. That's the danger of the masturbation fantasies. That's the danger of vicarious pretense. Because you're projecting away the energy of the hot genital strivings in their primordial form, in their primitive form, in their carnal form. Into your fantasies, you're getting a release. But what you're not realizing is you're releasing the very energy that you need to sustain you in the competition for sexual gratification, for release. The balance is very difficult. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of learning, and fundamentally a hard-boned philosophy to brace it on. That you have to win for yourself. It's your own, all of this that I'm talking about has to be rematerialized, reborn, rebirthed in your own individual DNA. Everybody is different. Everybody carries a different burden, a different cross. But I am arguing that any time you commingle, agape love, every time you commingle agape love with primal, carnal sexuality, you're going to be going wrong. Master and Johnson bastardized the whole thing and making it sterile by making it too clinical, too medical. Loses the urgency, the tensions Dr. Freud got it right, in my opinion. It's a question of how much of those partial libidinal sexual drives, how many of the components you get actualized. Now here comes the problem. If you're a short man, if you're an ugly man, you're gonna have problems. Moon face, you have ED problems. You can't get so few of your conditions met. You have to compromise everything. You have to compensate. You have to dream between the lines. You have to get yourself involved with somebody else's fantasy, somebody else's locker room story, and live through them vicarious pretense, because you're afraid to go out there and take a beating again and again before you develop a personality and a style. And if you're a short man, if you're an ugly man, if you have the Quasimodo man, there's no guarantees. I don't care what anybody tells you. There's no guarantees. Results vary. And a lot of it depends on material backup. How much can you pay? Who foots the bill? How does the bills get paid? How do the bills get paid? But regardless of anything, I found you're better off circulating under your own power than depending on somebody else to do it for you. You circulate under your own power. You do what you have to do under your own power. That means you have to know yourself and your limitations. When you come from limitations, the negative is prior to the positive. The positive has to be forged in a hot crucible. It has to be won out there in the battlefield, in the arena. And it comes from the negative. The motivations there, it comes from the negative. Even the TDH, a tall, dark, and handsome stud, has to get people to help him. He can't do it on his own. But the short, ugly man like me, with a big fat belly, and a moon face, Humpty Dumpty head, I have to learn to give to myself what my environment will not give me naturally. And you have to be fair, practical, and ruthlessly competitive with it. Don't look for anybody to lift you up, because the hand that lifts you up will lift you only to let you drop. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. What I'm saying, there is no mercy. Fuck. And there's no TDH that's going to front you, that's going to back you up, that's going to hold your hand and walk you through the social elements that it takes to work your way up to where you can get a fuck legitimately under your. You're not going to do it under your own power. You need a scheme. You need game. This is what I'm talking about. Everything else, in my opinion, is a delusion. And they love to fool, to mock, to stereotype, to caricature that disadvantaged, physically disadvantaged because of height, because of Quasimodo effect, and because of the sheer fact just doesn't have the experience to back his play. The TDH has gallons and gallons of experience over my short, small man. Because the short, small man does not have access to gain the right experiences to back him up. And to cover the embarrassment of that, he's rationalizing, he's justifying, he's analyzing. Some of the psychological schools like to, in mockery, in jest, is what I call it, call this unfortunate circumstance mental masturbation. All it does is show the ignorance and stupidity and inexperience of the so-called professional who says a thing like that, takes a position like that. Competition is the only way anything could be possible. The competition is not fair. Make up your mind to that. Milt Friedman was correct when he said capital, free marketplace, and he's talking about laissez-faire, dog down, balls to the wall capital is a necessary condition. But I didn't say it was the sufficient condition. I go along with Dr. Freud. Socialism, as far as I'm able to tell, is psychologically untenable. Its premises are psychologically untenable because it doesn't account. Lupus hominis lupus. Man is the wolf to man. However it happens, that wolf is for civil, tactical reasons and politeness. He's in sheep's clothing. Never trust anybody unless you have leverage on them. Never trust anybody unless you haven't done a complete, in-depth, concrete investigation, piece by piece. Never trust anybody. People lie, they make things up, they exaggerate, they prevaricate, and they're famous for promising, but not delivering on the promise. Guaranteed. Now, this is the negative that I'm talking about. Now, if you want to talk about a guppy love, if you want to talk about romance, if you want to talk about marriage and all that other, it's premised on this. The issues that I'm raising here, I'm arguing to you right here, right now, directly, and taking responsibility for what I'm saying, back up all the way, is premised on 500 yards of pure shit. That's the negative that you have to crawl through, particularly, and I'm talking to my people, short, ugly, disenfranchised, to forge your individuality, your power, your style, your personality in that hot crucible. That's your cross. You can look to your gods, you can look to your gurus, look to yourself. It's the only place you'll find any answers that are relevant to you. You have to be your own case manager. I don't make it simple. I present the hardcore situation. You go to your Tony Robbins, and for $605 for your seminar over the weekend, he'll make it simple for you. He'll put it in a package, he'll put it in a formula, and you'll be reborn again. You'll have the power. You'll find the power within. If you believe that, after listening to what I've premised, there's a Brooklyn Bridge. I'm selling. Reasonable. Come see me. We make a deal. Unless you come from a position of power, of strength, of courage and discipline and fortitude and intestinal fortitude, the true grit, You're finished, my friend. In a world of dog eat dog, balls to the wall, dog down competition in the only way it makes sense. It's not fair. Right and wrong have nothing to do with it. Spiritual vows is a whole different thing. Make up your mind to it. Jesus has no interest in what I'm talking about right here. He's taking care of your spiritual soul. He has no interest in what I'm talking about right here. Get down and get into what I'm talking about. The vitality of it, the importance of it, the relevance of it. I'm breaking it down to elemental, practical terms that communicate on a concrete, street smart practicality. If advice is not practical, it's meaningless. And that's practical, tailored to the individual who's getting that so-called advice. Otherwise, it's admonishment. Otherwise, it's a sermon. Otherwise, it's a lecture. I'm talking dog down. I'm talking practical. I'm talking realistic. I'm talking real world. Don't believe it. The biggest lie ever been told is that the woman will give you, if you present your need, and I always believe this, if you present, because it's been presented that way in the society in which you live, Hollywood, Madison Avenue, all that crap, that as far as the hot genital strivings are concerned, that's all I'm talking about right now. That's all we're focusing on. If you present it to the woman in a very clear, definitive, you say what you want in a very clear way, and you sell your case. This is assuming that you, the small, short, and that's who I'm talking to, the small, short, ugly, disenfranchised little man with a big belly and a big face, bald head, that's who I'm talking to. No woman's going to give you the time to speak to make your plea, I should say, for humanity, from a humanity point of view, from a humane point of view, for a compassionate piece of ass. There's no woman's going to let you do that. I promise you that. Guaranteed. So what's left? You have to get out on the battlefield with the only help you can get, you will ever get, is yourself, under your own power. That's why I like Gestalt, hardcore Gestalt. Get that man on his own self-supports and self-reliance and self-organismic control as quickly as possible. He's got to fight for his questions, fight for his answers, fight for resolution out there in the environment where everything is on the line, to win it or to lose it. But he never loses if he gets on that battlefield. He doesn't really lose. What he gains is the ability, it was a lesson learned, to ask better, more relevant, more important questions in terms of his own life, his own existence. And if you can do that, it's that process that I'm calling winning your self-reliance, your self-responsibility. Get him on his own powers. Take back the projections. Take back, reintegrate the hero figures that you've given so much of your power away to. in order to feel better about yourself. But the feeling better about yourself that you get is a phony. It destroys, it kills. It takes a man, and this is what I'm calling being a man, to win back, step by step, to take back everything you lost because of your weakness, because of your vacillation, because of your indecision, because of your paralysis to act, because you were not properly instructed, realistically, practically, and you were not properly prepared to do battle out there. You were like Don Quixote. You went out on a battlefield with nothing but a wooden sword and a ridiculous partner backing you up. And you were powerful until you met the Knights of the Mirrors, who showed the mirrors to you and showed you what you really are, and didn't let you get away until you faced up to. You looked at yourself in the mirror, and until in the daylight, in the hot, burning sun, 12 mirrors surrounding you in every direction, a full 360 degrees, and each one showing you how foolish you look, how foolish you're behaving. And if you don't get it, if you don't see it clearly in the mirror, the Knights of the Mirrors are telling you what they see. It's as realistic, it's as vital, it's as terrible, if you want to look at it that way, as that. But what else is there unless I invented it, unless I went to Hollywood and saw a movie and fantasized and projected into that fantasy and lived myself Alice in Wonderland. But once you leave the theater, once you leave that entertainment arena, and it's, I would question the entertainment that does a thing like that, that creates, if you want to get fancy with Tony Robbins, puts you in that kind of a state of paralysis, of hope, of reverie, of sentimentalizing. I would question that, because that dream ends when you walk out of the theater, my friend. That dream ends right then and there, when the next and the only relevant question comes up, and I'll conclude with this. Who foots the bill? Who pays the piper? How do our bills get paid? And it doesn't necessarily mean monetarily. Their emotional price, it's called the price. What's the price?